Hello and welcome to DIY Mask Kits. I'm Sharon with the Vigo County Public Library. Let's get started. In this video, first we're going to go over the kit contents. Then for our beginners, we are going to go over things like threading the needle, the kinds of stitches, and right versus wrong side of fabric. If you received a kit, in it you will find 2 fat quarters of cotton, which is enough for up to 4 masks, depending on the size of mask you make, the patterns in 3 sizes, a small sewing kit with assorted needles, threads, and pins. It also has a tape measure, a thimble, and a needle threader, sets of elastic for ear loops, the written instructions, and you will need scissors and a pen or pencil. You're going to take your needle threader and put the metal point through the eye of the needle, and when that is through, you're going to put your thread through the part sticking out and pull it back on through the needle, and there it is. The running stitch is the simplest kind of stitch to do by hand. The needle goes through the front of the fabric, comes back out through the back, and you just keep on until you reach the end. In and out, in and out. I am right-handed and I'm going to be doing the needlework with my right hand and holding the material with my left. If you are left-handed, you'll probably do it the opposite, but whatever is most comfortable for you works. The back stitch is a little bit more involved, but still not too hard. You start it like a straight stitch, going through the front of the fabric, and then coming back up. But instead of continuing forward, you will go back towards your first stitch, bring it around the back and up past your second stitch, and repeat the front back pattern. To knot the thread at the end, you're going to slide the needle under the last stitch, pull it and the thread most of the way through, and then you should see a small loop. Slip the needle through the loop and pull, and then you have a knot. Before sewing, pin your fabrics together with straight pins. When pinning, make sure to go through both layers of fabric. This will prevent your pieces from moving around. Most fabrics, especially if they're patterned, have a right side and a wrong side. Some fabrics have a more apparent right side than wrong side, as you can see here with my inside and outside fabrics. We're going to trace our pattern on the wrong side so our pin marks don't show in the final product. Once you've traced one pattern piece, go ahead and flip it over so you have mirror images, so that way your pieces will line up. Because if you don't do it this way, if you try to do it both of them that way, they won't line up right and you'll just have to cut more and more. Take your fabric, put it right sides together, and line up the edges. And then pin your fabric in place. So that way when you're sewing, it doesn't move around so much. Now that our fabric is pinned, we're going to start stitching. I'm using black thread so you can see what I'm doing. And since we're going to turn this inside out later, it doesn't really matter. But if it was something where the thread was showing, you might want to consider using either matching or contrast. But like matching contrast. Alright, so I'm using a back stitch here. So I've pulled my threads through. And we're going to go back towards my first stitch. Oops. And just for a little bit of security, we're going to pull it back. And we're just going to go over that stitch again. Just make it nice and secure. Alright. And then just along the curve, staying, I don't think that's quite 1/4 of an inch. You can measure if you want to, but and then just try to keep it even. It's okay if the stitches are a little big. The thing we're looking for here is evenness and not too big. You can see mine are dancing around a little. That's okay. That is okay. And honestly, depending on what you're doing, that could be a nice decorative touch. I've got a couple handmade masks where I kind of intentionally leaned into the unevenness to try to make it look, well, intentional. So just keep doing that for the entirety of the curve. And your back side is going to look a little something like this. Here you can see I didn't have quite enough thread to finish, so we're going to knot it and just continue where we left off. So take that and go under the last stitch you made. Pull it most of the way, go through that loop there, and pull. We've got a pretty good knot. It's not really much of a curve, but we're going to snip it anyway just to help it lie flat. So just take it and go snip, snip. You're going to do that for the inside and outside pieces. So we have our inside and outside pieces, and now we're going to put them together, right sides together. So make sure the fabrics are both facing the same way. You want the nose pieces to line up, and you want to nestle those together. And wiggle it a little bit, and you're going to notice that these flaps extend. Later that's going to be the tie casing, so that is perfectly good. Okay, so my fabrics are lined up and pinned together on the top side, and now we're going to stitch. And I'm going to keep using the back stitch, but if you like the running stitch better, please feel free to use that. And we're going to start our stitch here, so not all the way to the end of the outside fabric, but at the end of the inside fabric. And a reminder that the exact stitch length and the exact seam allowance are not important. What is important is consistency. And it doesn't matter too much what this looks like, so if your stitches are all messy, that's okay. So we're going to turn the mask inside out, and these stitches are going to be hidden. There's only one part of these masks where the stitches are not hidden, and that's going to be when we do the casing. So a little bit more important for neater stitches there, but again, if you're not used to hand sewing, pat yourself on the back for trying it because you are amazing. You might notice your seams trying to lie in opposite directions. That is great. You want that to happen. And if not, just kind of encourage them gently. When you're ready to sew over the nose piece, I recommend not knotting it right here. That is a little bit uncomfortable to have on your nose. So as much as you can, just go over the nose piece and then down a little bit. As you can see, I'm running out of thread, so I'm probably going to end it right about here. And then once your top is done, start along the bottom. Or if you did the bottom first, now it's time to start along the top. Either way. And same thing, I'm using back stitches, but if you want to use a running stitch, please feel free. The mask is almost done, so now it's time to flip it right side out. Just reach in and pull it through like you're turning a shirt right side out. If you have an iron, now is the time to bust it out and iron the sky. But if not, just flatten it as best you can. Now we're going to take our flaps and fold it over so that it meets the inside. And then fold it one more time, leaving enough room for elastic or ties. Alright, we're going to pin that down and sew it. This is the spot where the neatness of your stitches matters a little more. If you're not entirely comfortable with the back stitch, then the running stitch will look really nice right here. We are ready for our elastic and or ties. The easiest way I have found is take your elastic, stick it onto the end of a safety pin, oops, and then use that safety pin to thread the elastic up through the casing. You might have to tug just a little bit, especially if your casing is not as wide as it could be, but it'll go on through. Mine's going surprisingly smoothly. Let's take that guy off. And at this point, depending on how much extra you need, you can sew it, you can tie it. I find for my face, I have plenty of room if I just knot it. And now we have our finished mask. I hope you enjoy your mask. Thanks for watching.